Hello, everyone. This is Mary Curick with Frontrunners Innovate, and I have with me it's an interesting little backstory first, how I know him. He is a colleague and partner of one of my advisory board members who I had on an interview not long ago. And that interview was really the impetus for us connecting. So, Greg Downey, glad to have you on board today with me, and so glad that our mutual folks that are between us were the sort of bouncing off sort of trampoline for us getting a chance to meet each other. So for everybody who is going to want to know this gentleman after we get through this interview, this is Greg Downey, President and COO of Perm Ventures. And this conversation is going to go into a couple of different places I'm really excited about, and especially for anybody who's watching who is looking for money, which is just about everybody. Perm Ventures, it sort of wraps around a lot of different things, but think about anything that's in health, fitness, wellness, any kind of products, services that are out there that are moving in the direction toward the market or are already on market and maybe looking to expand. Greg is also into blockchain and pulls that into a lot of the work that he does, but has a lot of experience in business development himself. And so I'm going to kind of stop with the emerging tech and growth strategies piece of him and say he's the whole ball of wax here. he's the whole game from beginning to end, and say welcome to you. And I want to get him to explain himself a little better than I just did. But, when you have somebody who fills so many, roles out there, then you just kind of put it all together and say, it's all under Perm Ventures. And he does a lot, and he does it with business, and he does it with strategy, and he does it with startups and innovators and whatnot. So thank you, Greg, for being here. You jump right in and you give us the genesis of Greg. Where did you start with all that you're doing? I think probably we talked a lot about business development in other spaces, but tell us where you started and how you got to where you're doing Perm.
Oh, I appreciate it, and thank you for having me on your show. This is an honor and a lot of fun. So I'll try to keep this brief. So I started off in sales and marketing, and got involved in a startup company within Johnson & Johnson as a women's health company. So I tell people that was what gave me the false impression of startups, because you don't often start with J&J's logo, $40 million in cash, and really cool technologies from Stanford that nobody else has. So that company got launched. It's called Gynecare. Now it's called Ethicons Women's Health and Urology, but really slick technologies that nobody else had, serving unmet needs. And that's kind of the foundation, I think, of where my career path has been, is going after these niche markets where people have been overlooking them. So that got me into the OR, that got me working with doctors. And then the .com thing kind of started taking off. So I'm kind of dating myself, but I wanted to know how companies were built. So I got the sales thing down, they're one of their top sales guys, helped build a training program. And then some other J&J executives tapped me and said, hey, we're going to go out west to San Diego, where there's this startup that's been funded by Kleiner Perkins and Sequoia and Oakwood and all these big VCs. Do you want to come join us? And so I was like, yeah, who wouldn't at that? This is the mid to late 90s. Like, who wouldn't do that? So I did that, got involved in business development, and got to really see how companies were built. And that's really kind of what got me interested in business. Was sales and marketing is key and critical. I wanted to know how companies were built and how they were financed and how these guys at the top, were able to build these enterprises. That company was acquired right before it went public. Then the .com thing kind of fizzled out. Got involved in a mobile software company. There's a spin out of Rolls-Holman Institute, a company called No Inc., but is basically mobile software, right? So remember the Palm Pilot and the iPac?
Yeah.
Back in those days. So we were writing software for mobile sales reps. So before Salesforce was born, I helped lead them into orthopedics and some other markets. And that company was also later acquired, and then stayed in startups, started doing some investing, and got involved, was an investor first in a pediatric orthopedic implant company. I have two beautiful daughters, and now they're 18 and 14, but at the time they're little. And I was like, the orthopedic market was primarily focused on adults. and no one was really going after kids. And a guy who is now the CEO was an intern of mine at the software company. I helped him, kind of showed him way into orthopedics in the industry, and he ended up pulling me into this startup. But just saw some of these horrible videos of these kids getting these downsized implants, veterinary implants, right? And just going, that can't be right.
Yeah.
So we started a pediatric orthopedic implant company. I was head of business development, was on the board. And orthopedic companies need a lot of money to get started. So that's where I learned how to raise capital. There's 6 of us at the time. We're all kind of looking around the room going, okay, we all have to like talk to our own networks, but somebody has to lead the charge.
Yeah.
So I pulled off a couple of private placements, wrote them. We raised about 19 million over 3 private placements, all through individuals. These are $100,000 checks. The company went public in 2017. But before the company went public, around 2010, spending a lot of time in Warsaw, Indiana, spending a lot of time in Plains, and then trying to help everybody else's kids. And then my own kids, I didn't see them a whole lot. And I remember coming home, and my youngest, Mira, at the time, I think I'm a pretty tough guy. I've done a lot of MMA and a lot of fighting in my time, and jumped out of planes and all that fun stuff. But it was having to chase her around the house to win her heart back every week. So I was like, okay, something's wrong here. And one thing led to another. We stepped down from the board, and then when you step down from a board, everybody gets to know all the shareholders. And so I had shareholders calling me, investors calling me, going, hey, what happened? And what are you going to do next? And, oh, by the way, now that you're free, can you help me with my company?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting around going, well, I got to pick a job. I got to do something. And that's what my wife said to me. She's like, look, stop building everybody else's empire and build your own. Do them all. Start your own company.
Yeah.
So when your wife gives you that blessing and that freedom, you jump on it. Yeah. And so that was when Perm was born. I was sitting in my office trying to figure out a name, and I was thinking Latin, Greek derivatives. I wanted ventures in there because we raise capital and work with investors, and Preparo Ventures was one. I was kind of zeroed on that. And my wife and my oldest daughter were reading scripture, and there's I don't know if you're familiar with the Veggie Tales, but these little Christian cartoons with vegetables, right? Yeah. They had the G version of the book of Esther. And so if there's it's not really a G book, it's more of but they had the G version. She wanted to know what the real story was. So the story was, I'm sitting in my office. My wife yells out, what about Purim? And I went to a predominantly Jewish prep school and Fort Lauderdale boarding school. I'm Scotch Irish. So I remember taking the Christian holidays and the Jewish holidays and Christian holidays as always, like I was off of school in Fort Lauderdale. But I don't remember Purim. And so there's a story behind Purim. It's one of the most festive Jewish holidays, but it came from a moment where Esther had to reveal who she was, that she was Jewish to this Persian king that was brutal. Is either she revealed who she was with this information about her people being basically caught in a genocide by this really nasty guy named Haman, or she kept quiet. Either she revealed who she was and saved her people potentially, or she's going to die either way. So that kind of resonated with, okay, she's kind of stuck in the middle. Like, she's got this information, she has to act on it. And so the symbolism, not that I'm comparing myself to Esther, but the symbolism was there of going, I'm often find myself in between the investor and the CEO of these companies, and you've got to make do with the information you're given. You got to seek wisdom, right? Surround yourself with smarter people. So that was like, okay, I'm somewhat interested, but the name, I don't know. Then my wife's like, well, look it up. So Perm Ventures was available. I was like, okay, that's interesting. A 2,500-year-old name, Perm Ventures available. So I looked at it. It's like, okay, check that box. And the next element was, well, look it up. So I looked it up, read the holidays, like, okay, this is pretty cool. Don't remember this holiday and being in high school. Liked that it was the most festive of holidays, went from sadness to gladness. Purim is where actually Haman, the bad guy, literally rolled the dice to say, that's the date we're going to wipe all these people out. So it goes from sadness to gladness is the story, or Purim comes from.
Yeah.
And anyways, when I saw the story, the domain was available, I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to lean towards it. And then we found out, and that date in 2010 was the beginning of Perm that day.
Wow.
So we bought the domain.
Yep.
3 days later, we're incorporated. 30 days later, we're in the black, and we've been flying, ever since. And so the model of Perm is really, we serve behind the scenes. We work with CEOs and PhDs and a lot of physicians that have these great ideas, that have IP, that have some capital in it. Usually it's their own money or their friends and family, but they're not that level of going, okay, I know I have something, but what next? Like, do I hire a full-time CEO? Do I go talk to the venture capitalists? Because that's what most people talk about as venture capitalists. What do I do? And so we come in and do usually a full assessment. If it's a good match, we usually do these custom engagements, but usually involves capital, strategy, business development, bringing in people. I mean, we've got an incredible group of advisors and partners. Some of them are listed on our site at permventures.com. But it's very strategic. And when you look back, we did a retrospective look about on the back of the last 12 years. And our average engagement, meaning what a client was to pay us to do stuff. I kind of refer to us, we're your SWAT team. We come in, we fix problems, we build, we go quick. And we don't do things behind the scenes with the executives. Like, we show you exactly what we're doing. We're working alongside of you. Is that our average return on investment is about 20 to 30x within 12 to 18 months. So when we engage, we go all in, we bring the kitchen sink, the teams, and we're disruptive. And so we've done zero advertising up until about 12 months ago. We had a website with one page, and that's it, because we couldn't do anymore. Everything is referral. So we've grown. We're now in energy production for blockchain and crypto projects. We're involved in regenerative medicine. We actually started a clinic overseas to do advanced, minimally invasive regenerative medicine, but we're actually involved in a very innovative biologic. We're also involved in an orthopedics venture. There's two founders that I'm blessed to be pulled in this organization called Genesis New Ventures. But these two guys, between the two of them, they have over almost $500 million in exits. And so now they're taking this strategy of, find the unmet need, find the doctor, commercialize, sell, rinse, and repeat over and over and over again. So that's kind of what we do. And that's not really a nutshell, but I'll stop and take a breath and answer any questions you got.
Well, you do, when I said the whole ball of wax, I mean, it really is kind of every little sort of nut and bolt that puts together a business, or if one's already put together, then where the next step goes is maybe will be a whole another set of nuts and bolts to be able to get it to where it needs to be. So it's interesting that you're taking on the whole animal, so to speak. What so we know kind of the why, because you've figured out where the gaps are and why people are calling you, what they need. I've always said a long time ago that I think a lot of times that I started, by the way, in the video games industry. So of all things. And my feeling was the creative brain that would sit down and figure out a video game would maybe not necessarily be the same brain that would figure out the business around the video game. So, right. So if you've got the two guys and a dog in a basement, you might not, who are working with their very best friend that they've known forever, would not even think to put a contract between them to move their business forward. So it really does take having that business sense as well as the creative or technical brain that's creating the product or service that's being sold. So, what you're doing, you explained some of the projects you're working on right now. Is there anything that's sort of out of the norm, out of, we've talked about health and wellness and all that. Is there something that's a step aside from any?
Like a program that we do with Perm?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that is really the kind of the prompting of my wife, right? Is that, she's the puppeteer, I guess you could say. But
so good at that.
Hey, but I say behind every good man is a fantastic wife, right? So as we typically engage companies, and we have a rule, we don't engage unless she's able to meet them or, know more about it. Right. She said she could have saved me millions of dollars if I just would have listened to her on a few occasions. If she's like, I don't have a good feeling about that guy. So, and because it's easy to get enamored with a shiny object, like, oh my gosh, I could do so much with this. But if you have a bad team or a bad CEO, forget it.
Yeah.
And so we look at going teams first, technology second, every day of the week. So we put that in place. The other thing too is now that when we engage companies, it takes time, right? We're very protective over our reputation. We know what we can do. We're a full shop. So we do all the due diligence. We bring in advisors. We do branding, marketing, strategy. It's not just, hey, I need money. It's how do you look? How do you feel? What's your, all that stuff. There's a lot of psychology that goes into this. But one thing that we've put together that's actually saves us a lot of time. And for me, it's kind of like you look back on your career and been doing this for 25 years and going, what are the things I don't like that I'd like to change? And one of them is, the process of raising capital, right? It's there really wasn't, I went through a number of incubators and accelerators and met with smart people. But it was never the whole A to Z. Like, how do you do this? Yeah. And it wasn't, they don't teach it in business school. I went to a very good business school that I didn't learn that stuff. But so we put together a program that allows us not only to screen companies in a very strategic way, but also allows that entrepreneur, that business owner to glean all that knowledge and help and do it with us. Yeah. So we've developed an 8-week program where, again, we're very selective of what we do, but we engage in similar formats where we're online, we're working with a handful of entrepreneurs, but we'll literally put them through an 8-week program where we're teaching you everything from the strategy and structure of executive summaries, business plans, where to find capital, how to build your network, where you really should be looking for capital, how to engage those investors, how to close them. We go through all the documents you need on how to put the whole thing together. We actually give those documents away. It's about $15,000 worth of documents. So you have, and this is stuff that's been used. Like, these are real working documents, because some of my frustrations were, one, the folks that were teaching this were either academic, nothing against academics, but they hadn't done this. They haven't been in the trenches and gone through the fire of raising capital and doing startups. So we added that element, right? We have that experience. We've done it dozens of times. The other one was, you go to lawyers and you go to these brokers and investment bankers, and usually you get charged up front. You don't really know what's going on. They speak at a level that you don't understand. We teach you all that stuff, so you're armed and dangerous. And the goal is to make the entrepreneur, the business owner, the person leading the charge, to be very self-efficient and to be self-reliant, and also to be able to go toe-to-toe with investors, not a combative way, but to know the lingo, to know the strategy, to know the steps. Because I know you and I have talked previously, I get hit up on LinkedIn all the time. I'll get people, because we'll make announcements and people will look us up when they find us, and people will send me like 5 documents. Be like, hey, will you invest in my company? I'm like, 1, don't know who you are. 2, you just sent me 5 documents. I don't know what you're doing. And the answer is no. Like, I'm not going to do that. So we walk these entrepreneurs through this program. And I tell you, we just finished a course. We just finished up last week. One of the attendees, one of the clients, is 35-year veteran in healthcare and IT. I mean, I just saw his bio. I kind of got on him after the course going, you should have shared this first. Because if you read this gentleman's bio, just one of the things that he did was ran a $3 billion company with 3,300 employees. And his testimonial to me was, this is a master's level program. Every business owner, every entrepreneur should know this stuff and have this stuff in their arsenal to know what you're doing, whether you're raising capital or not. Like, even look at the economy, right? If you got a profitable business and you bootstrapped it, congratulations, you're in that upper echelon of folks that can do it, but you never know what's going to come around the corner, right? So learning what we put people through, it helps with real estate investment. It helps with startups. It helps mature companies on where they want to go. It helps if you want to sell your company.
Yeah.
But it's empowerment. It's giving you the tools that usually the big boys at the top keep behind the door. And a lot of people run towards the VC space, and that's not really where you should be hunting if you're an earlier stage company. But we walk people through that. We have a very systematic approach. We record everything so they get access to this. They get access to all of our team. And it's been a lot of fun, but it also allows us to take a very laborious process, pass that torch to the entrepreneur, let them benefit, but also helps us screen companies a lot faster.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing on the side. I like it because we're doing this type of stuff. It's,
Yeah.
I was in St. Kitts for 2 years living, and when COVID hit, you're kind of looking around going, all right, now what am I gonna do? Like, like I could go get coconuts. Like I could, I got to figure something out. So
Yeah.
I love the online aspect and the global reach that Zoom and the COVID, that's probably the one benefit that came out of this whole thing. But anyways, that's something we're excited about, that it's adding value. And for me, I banged my head against a wall for 15 years trying to figure this stuff out. And if I can teach it to you in 8 weeks or less, then we both win.
It's fantastic. And you said you just started the first class or whatever. Is it going in cohorts or in like, are you going to start another class at another time, or people drop in whenever?
We're starting another one July 12th. So just in like 2 weeks from now, a little less than 2 weeks.
Okay.
What we're working on now, we have a team is automating some of these things, like the training stuff, so you can do it whenever. We can drop people in as quick as they come.
I was going to say that might be good as well.
That's what we're doing, but we still keep the live workshops. Like, so during this program, twice a week, we're live, looking, like if you want your executive summary looked at, everybody is under NDA. We go through it. Everybody can see what we're doing. Yeah. But the end of the program is, it's not just, hey, I learned a lot of stuff. Your stuff is dialed in. Yeah. And that's the key takeaway, is you actually walk away with your own nugget. And just in this last group, 2/3 of the folks that are in our group, within the second week, they're already talking to investors. So we move rapidly. We don't say, hey, go build your 40-page pitch deck and go build your business plan, and then maybe go. And it's like, no, we know exactly what you need to do right now to get talking to people immediately while all these other things are moving down the track. And so that's, but yeah, it's
very targeted.
The 12th is the next one.
Yeah, that is coming up very fast. So are there limited spots for people? Or tell me, what is the process? They need to go to your site, and we will drop the link in for everybody to see that, where they can go to look at this. But what is the process for how you accept applicants for this?
We're pretty selective. Like it depends on the industry, but we're pretty broad. I mean, we've done stuff in IT, biologics, implants, real estate. So we're pretty broad, and a lot of these principles apply to almost anything, any type of business. So we go through that process. We want to make sure we actually talk to the entrepreneur. It's not just, hey, sign up and here you go. We actually make sure they're a good fit, because we want to keep our reputation strong. We keep the classes, the groups, between 3 to 5 entrepreneurs. So, so everybody's, it's not like you're going to wait in a line with 40 people on a Zoom call and be like, here's my, this is, we make sure it's small. We want to be able to scale. We probably will, but this allows us really to over deliver. And that's the theme of Perm, is if you talk to any of our clients, we got some testimonials on our website. We have a history of over delivering. It's just, I've never been able to go half throttle. So, so that's a good thing and a bad thing, but, we were pretty selective, but we keep the group small.
Well, just for the sake of people out there who are watching, the ideal candidate for something like this would be somebody maybe who's already who has something on market, or who is looking to get to market, who maybe has some funding. If you can kind of paint the picture a little bit for us. Certainly.
No, that's a good question. So typically what we look for is not the cocktail napkin, right? If this is an idea, if you have the funding, you want to learn this stuff, that's fine. Our firm, on the professional services side, where we do, big engagements, you can see some of them on our website. Those are long-term, we take cash and equity, we grow those things. The program we're talking about, this Capital Mastermind program, we keep it pretty selective. We will do people that want to enhance their bio and their skills as an executive. Because once you learn this stuff and you're successful at it, you get people find out and then they contact you. And a lot of the deals we're involved in right now are because of the reputation, not because we marketed ourselves. It's because, hey, I've heard you've done this. Can you help us? So we have early stage startups. Those are the most difficult to finance, but that's what we've been doing for 15 years. So by learning those specific skill sets, you can take those same skill sets and finance a company that's generating revenue. It actually makes it easier, but it's the same rules apply. So give an example, the pre-revenue startups, even revenue generating companies that are looking to expand. And oftentimes the fun thing about what I personally like about the program and why I'm personally involved in these work sessions is that light bulbs always go on. The dots start to connect. You're a dot connector, right? So just like one of the groups that went through was a software company. Turns out another attendee, his dad was huge in the clinical software space. So we've connected those folks up. So we keep that network, but it's really a range. When companies get to a couple $1 million in revenue, we still work with them. But for this particular course, it's really ideal for the entrepreneur business owner that has an idea, that probably puts their own money into it, that has a team trying to figure it out, but they're just going, I know I need more capital and I want to take some of the risk off my own shoulders, but bring in smart capital so I can actually build an enterprise and take it to the next level. That is kind of our ideal client.
Okay. Well, and the name of the course again is?
It's Capital Mastermind.
Okay. Capital Mastermind. We're going to give you a little more information about that. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to need to go to www.frontrunnersinnovate.com, where you're going to see this interview. You'll get the audio podcast version of this interview as well, in case you're one of those that likes to drive and listen or walk and listen like I do. And we'll give you all the information you need to get to that course. I think there's tons of people I can think of right now that I've worked with in the past that would really benefit from this course. I want to share with everybody, you are located in the United States, in Florida. And, but you do work globally. So this is for anybody who's watching, who's thinking maybe this is US based. It's US headquartered, but you are global in perspective of what your broad scope, work that you do, right?
That is correct. Yeah, we're located in Sarasota, Florida. We have satellite offices in New York, Los Angeles, but we're global.
Okay, very good. So what is coming up in the next 6 months for you? I mean, you've got all your book of work that you're doing. You've got now this program that's going on. Is there something else happening between now and the end of the year?
There is. No, it's a big lift, but it's one of those things where kind of sort of God prompts you and where you go and all that stuff. But really where we're at right now is, if I was to kind of lay out the projects that we're engaged in, again, some of these we have listed on the site. And we're putting capital into each one of these companies, or helping put capital into these companies. We've got an incredible network of investors, high net worth individuals, family offices that are used to seeing our stuff because they know it's buttoned up and it's unique and it has incredible potential, is actually developing our own fund. So we're taking this basket of goodies that we have and all the different streams of income that are coming in from these different projects and different engagements, and actually putting together, it could be a $30 to $50 million, fund one, so to speak. I'm not a fund. I've never run a fund, but I've got folks on my team that have, so they've got all the licenses and all that kind of stuff, but it'd be much easier for us to deploy capital even faster if we were quickly deploying it ourselves. And so that's our goal by the end of the year. We're blessed with a lot of these interesting projects. It's just finding the time, because I have to sit, and we've got some of it written, but the few folks that have had a peek of what this thing is, it's not a fund that you're going to find on Wall Street. This isn't anything like that. This is getting in on some extremely disruptive stuff in healthcare, regenerating the vascular structure, microvascular structure in the body, like really doing it. FDA cleared. There's another one that's an orthopedic company that I mentioned that's just, rinse and repeat, quick commercialization, great investment. You're not waiting for 10 years to get your money back. These guys on average have a 30 IRR, but this is 10x your investment per deal, per investment per technology in about 4 years. There's a crypto energy power plant, I think I mentioned, that we're involved in, and several others, to where just deploying that capital, if we did that today and we took all the equity out of all those deals, I'd have some really happy investors in about 3 to 5 years. So we're going, how can we do, like, one, we're helping the companies because we're doing this even faster, and lighting them up even faster. We get great valuations. But it's also from the investment standpoint. I mean, you can invest in Wall Street. There's nothing against it. You do Bitcoin and do that ride. But when you actually get to invest in these companies and in these entrepreneurs and actually get to help them out, it's the most rewarding type of return you can ask for. So we just want to go bigger. And so we're talking to a couple of family offices and a couple of groups, domestic, international, that might be interested in doing it with it. But, they'd be LPs, and full transparency in what we do, and exciting stuff. That's all of them are disruptive. And we keep our hands in stuff. That's, I think, why our returns are so high. Is that if we can't get in and move the needle, we won't do it. So we police the investment, if you will. That's what we do.
Perfect. I mean, my goodness, you really are the one-stop shop. I mean, this is a guy to know. You kind of alluded to who you might like to meet to move you forward with what you're doing, and the fact that over the next 6 months you're raising this fund. But be specific with us. Tell us what types of people you want to meet.
It's, we always, through the program that we teach, right? It's smart capital, right? You need the capital, but these are the people putting money into early stage companies or investing with you. You're essentially getting married for a period of time. And so what I'm a big believer in is surround yourself with smarter people. We have an extensive network of advisors and partners and stuff like that to get stuff done. But someone that doesn't mind bucking the system, that kind of wants to put the hot poker in the traditional eye of the status quo. But family offices, I think, are where we fit really well with them, because they look for stuff like this. So family offices, high net worth individuals, physicians, because with physicians, most of the physicians I know always have a great idea. So they can participate, earn money from an investment, but then now they're tied into this network of commercialization experts to where we can potentially do something together.
Around too.
We're also pretty active. I didn't mention this too. We're also pretty active with a large service disabled veteran-owned small business. I've been working with these guys for about 8 years, but they're pretty significant in getting technologies out to all the VA, to all the vets. And so we help introduce them to biologics. We got them into spine, and we're bringing other innovative technologies to make sure our nation's warriors get access to this stuff. So that's another passion that I want to find more technologies, more opportunities to get into that system, because these folks deserve it the most. And so we're excited about some of the things that are coming down the pipeline that we can get into that system. But I guess high net worth individuals, family offices, we're not really a fit for VC. We graduate folks maybe to that, but we've never had one of our deals. Actually, we did. The pediatric orthopedic company went to VC, but traditionally it's, you can do this with other sources of capital. Nothing against VC. We definitely would work with them, but we're earlier than that.
Yeah. I was on a business call not long ago where the person that was advising the innovator said, you need to think about how you're approaching your fundraise, because he was, I think, looking for an A round. He said, sometimes it's better to extend a seed round than it is to look for an A round, depending on the project and depending on what, where you're at basically with your funding cycle.
And it's funny, that's week 1. So we cover that in the very first week. We're like, we go through the whole definitions. These are all the sources of capital: private equity, venture capital, investment banking, where you're at in that spectrum.
Timing is everything.
It's everything. And the other thing too that people often forget It's valuation. Like
Mhm.
they'll come at a startup with a crazy valuation and they wonder why no one returns their phone calls. They're not getting it done.
Yeah.
I tell people, it's like, look, if you're really starting as a startup and you put your own capital in, you're looking for that first tranche of capital,
Yeah.
be generous. Like it's better to have that first
Mhm.
dollar getting in is the most difficult, right? You know that it's very difficult, but hopefully you'll find that right match. Because
Yeah.
once you get that in, and we actually teach people how to, once you get that money in, how you create a feedy frenzy around the other folks
Yeah.
to start a pile on. But it's have a good valuation, be sober about it, be willing to negotiate, but get that check in, get that in. And also too, you know, we just did this in our last group was, you know, one group was looking for like $5 million and you ask them, how are you going to spend it? And they go, well, we spend it over 5 years. It's like, no. Go back to like 18 months. Like, what do you need for 18 months? Like, get some milestones down, hit those milestones, your valuation bumps, and you're giving away less equity, but it's much more tolerable because now the investor only has to cut a check for $1 million or $1.5 million versus 5, because you couldn't spend it anyways. So we really help people zone in on where are your milestones, where are the inflection points. Let's map that out. What do you need? Add in Murphy's Law. Go for that, right? Because it will happen.
That's true.
And it's just, it makes it, then you open yourself up to angel networks and a bunch of other folks. But oftentimes I hear, I'll throw this at you, and I'm trademarking this, right? So, but I'll share this with you. Founder ITIS. Okay. So it's founder ITIS is, it affects 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs. It's oftentimes fatal. But it's just thinking, oh, I got this valuation, I got this great widget, and I'm going to hold on to this. And, you know, they just don't understand that I'm the next Google. And you're like, next, like
smartest business owner is what we call it. World's smartest business owner.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when we screen companies, that's some of the things that we talk about. We go, is it more important for you to have the CEO title or to have a successful company?
That's right.
Right. Is it more important for you to own 100% of the equity or own 10% equity in a company that's worth $5 billion? Like, and you'll be surprised on what you hear, you know, if people are really being honest. And I always tell people too, if you have a small team, get agreements done, be professional from day one, because when money starts coming in, craziness starts to happen, you know, but you'll see the
I don't
worst.
care if you went to college together. It's if they're your cousin, I don't care. It's still not good.
It brings up, unfortunately, you see the worst in people come out because they go, I'm now worth this. It's like, there's a long way to go before you get there, but getting things in writing, being professional from day one. Yeah, you may be friends, you may be okay to do it on a handshake, but you know, get stuff in writing. And so we actually work with the entrepreneur and going, we work even through the employment agreements. It's going, this is the type of language you want in your employment agreement, because even if you're the CEO and the founder, if you go raise capital or you get acquired or you merge or do a JV with someone, that language in that agreement is needs to be written a certain way, or you can be hosed and not even know it. So we walk them through that.
Go wrong. Yeah. I mean,
so it's just what has gone wrong and what do we experience and what have we observed over all these years, the highs and the lows, and then packing it into 8 weeks of going, here it is. Avoid the speed bumps. Here's the traps. Here's what you need to know. Here's what you need to do. We'll help you get there and be prepared to work. But when you come on the other side, I guarantee you'll be blown away, because you'll rapidly accelerate what normally would take you years to try to figure out on your own.
Incredible benefit. Incredible. I am so tickled that you're doing this, because like I say, when you first told me you were doing it, I can think of tons of people right off the top of my head that should be.
I'll tell my wife, right? Because she gets the credit.
There should be bunches. This is great stuff. So Greg, thank you. I want you to stay with me for a second, because as you were talking, somebody's name came to my mind and I wrote it down. I wanted to talk to you about it. But everybody else, if you're watching this on YouTube, like I said, go to www.frontrunnersinnovate.com where you'll get this interview. You'll get it in an audio podcast version if you like that. And all the information he just shared with us, any of the links and resource bits and pieces that we need to share with you, we'll have it there for you. So I want to say thank you again, Greg, for all the good info and the wisdom and all the good stuff you're doing for all the innovators out there who need to get their product and service out there to impact because that's the only way we get things done, is if we have people who can facilitate these things forward. So thanks what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate the time.
All right. Happy front running, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.